Welcome to the final of our four-part Queensland Government Meraki Network Readiness training series, as sponsored by Data3, Cisco and Meraki. My name is Simon McCrosty. I'm the Meraki Partner Lead at Data3. The topic for today's session is Secure SD-WAN in Minutes, presented by Scott Williamson from Cisco Meraki. There'll be an opportunity at the end of the session, as usual, to ask any questions, and I'll now hand over to Scott.
All right, thanks, Simon. So what we'll cover today is SD-WAN, the Meraki flavour of SD-WAN, what we're covering there. So just how I'll cover a bit about the background of why SD-WAN, how it's easy to configure, what we can do inside there, how we secure direct internet access from sites, DIA, a little bit around our 4G. LTE offerings inside there, and then a bit about a thing called Meraki Insight, which is all around application experience monitoring from an end user's point of view. I'll run through a bit of a demo and show and tell on some of that at the end. Ask questions as we go along in the Q&A panel. At the end, if you really want to, we can put your hand up and answer questions there, or we can follow up afterwards as well inside there. So like I said, in the first session 4 weeks ago now, or 3.5 weeks ago, is not going to cover the whole Meraki value prop for every single session, but I will cover the mission statement, which is about simplifying powerful technology to free passionate people to focus on their mission, which is all around taking really complex capabilities. And this is actually a really good example of it with SD-WAN, where we would go and create a routed network, or we'd go and configure all devices to try and link up to each other, run routing protocols. And then we want to do things like application steering over that. Almost becomes too hard over a routed network. And then having that reverse path working based on application performance inside there. So I did a session with customers years ago on this, a couple of years ago, and basically taking 300 to 400 lines of config per router and turning it into 6 to 7 clicks on the dashboard. So it's quite powerful what we can do here. So it's simplifying that powerful technology, obviously to free you guys, the passionate people, about technology, so you can deliver business value rather than keeping the lights on all day. Technology simply works. It is our back end and the process of how we manage the equipment to make the best software to run on the best hardware with the least customer impact to their environment. Make it nice and simple using back end capabilities like machine learning and the likes for that thing. It's just what we call running it on the cloud. And there, so SD-WAN and the rocket ship. So this is a little bit of where we're coming from and why first inside here. So I'll do this reasonably quickly, so don't be too worried about marketing or the likes. But basically, the massive growth of SaaS applications, the business trends, Office 365, and as we're on now, WebEx, all that functionality, a lot more of that's being adopted by business at different layers, or there's just elements of it that are or aren't. Tunneling all these applications over our network and getting them out and giving a good application experience is challenging. So, and basically it's just like a massive growth inside. Some customers I deal with now are 100% SaaS, where they don't have data centers. They have a little bit of stuff sitting up in, a cloud provider, Azure, AWS, Google Cloud or something, which they would connect to over their SD-WAN, and then everything else would be direct internet. With providing the same security posture, policy and control at the edge. The business traffic alone as well, especially over these COVID times as well, as we've seen massive growth in VPN back into organisations, and then going out to the internet or teleworking applications, huge growth in those areas too, where business traffic needs to get out to the business but be provided securely. And the growth in that is as huge as well. And the SD-WAN traffic growth inside there, tunneling it over those underlays and making that simple is been massive in that market as well. And the adoption is huge in there. So why is the adoption huge, and why does this market sort of exist? Well, if we look at an existing environment, we've probably got MPLS circuits or some sort of fixed line circuits that go from point A to point B. Inside there, and they're quite costly per month, these guys. If we wanted to then send different traffic over there, we have really complex QoS policy or QoS policies quality of service policies, to those traffic over the right path at the right times, and that costs more to either manage that yourself or have someone managing that in there for you. So, the cost is sort of the main product. So what we see a lot of customers do is they might augment MPLS at a site with broadband, for example, where they'll add an internet link to the site or some other service at the site, which is going to be lower cost, and they'll try and steer traffic down that manually. Inside SD-WAN, obviously, we can make that just part of the underlay, and it doesn't really matter because we just tunnel over it. And what we're seeing a lot in customers is actually broadband, or NBN business grade service and 4G, or consumer grade service and 4G, or 2 NBN services if they can get it from different providers, NBN and one of the major carriers that has their own infrastructure for that connectivity. You have to think about your SLAs inside your organisation to have the right carriage. And what we do find is that people quickly realise that this internet thing is actually pretty available, and if I have redundant paths over that, then it's super available, and that can be easily managed by having something like SD-WAN in there. And then around the cost savings inside that, this is what all the bean counters really love, is that we go from having an MPLS circuit at around $600 plus $1,200 a month for 2 meg or 4 meg, to not $15 or $15 per megabyte per month, or $60, $100, $130, $150, $200 tops a month for a service that's going to be not 2 meg or 4 meg. It's going to be 50 meg or 100 meg or asymmetrical or something like that, a lot higher bandwidth. So therefore, moving from 2 links at $600 a month to 2 links that are $100 a month or something like that is massive cost savings to businesses in there. And that's why this exists. But then trying to manage that and tunnel over that and have those infrastructure is quite hard. So Cisco inside the SD-WAN portfolio, have 2 different offerings inside there. We have a Cisco SD-WAN powered by Meraki and Cisco SD-WAN powered by Viptela. The different functionalities and capabilities in both of those products, and it's something that we always welcome that customer conversation. Say, hey, I'm trying to achieve this. Here's my 2 ways to do it, which is our best way to go. Or I've got a massive investment already in the Cisco ISR routers that I've only just put out there in the last 2 years. What's the right answer for me? Or a hybrid approach where we have a number of customers that might join up some of their complex head-end sites with something like Viptela, and then their 300, 500, 600 branch sites would just be easily met by simple cloud management inside there, or there might be a hardware refresh or something there. So good to have that. That can be a hybrid approach too, like I said, so it makes it much easier. Not one size fits all, which is pretty key, as opposed to just having one product that we shoehorn into every customer. Cisco SD-WAN powered by Meraki is what we're going to talk about today in more depth. So what powers SD-WAN by Meraki is a thing called our MX appliances. MX, X Factor, it does everything. It's our SD-WAN, firewall, UTM appliance. The basis of these appliances, which we'll cover a bit more in depth when we look at the hardware, but all of them have 2 WAN ports and 4G backup, either via USB or embedded 4G inside there. They have a bunch of Ethernet ports on them for different functionalities. Some have PoE out on those, depending on what to do. So sometimes a small branch office can be met by a small appliance that has a couple of PoE ports, number of LAN ports on that, and then it's WAN ports. In our HA mode, it's quite unique to the industry. We have, what I talked about earlier, how our simple licensing model of 1 device, 1 license, and that license is 1, 3, 5, 7, or 10 years. And then we have licensing tiers for functionality, and so that we don't have per feature licensing. When we do HA, we just have 2 bits of hardware and then 1 license maps to those 2 bits of hardware, which then makes it really easy to do HA. And typically the hardware is the cheaper component of the SD-WAN appliances. So to have 2 small end at a branch site MX appliances is quite cost effective from a hardware point of view, and then 1 software license that covers those guys to achieve HA. So simple to achieve HA, and helps, especially at remote sites in regional locations where it's just nice to have a second box sitting there in a cat-like state of readiness to take over from the primary box out there. So the hardware available today is this portfolio here. So we have what we call the Z series, which is really a teleworker platform. So these guys support one WAN and either 4G, LTE, USB backup, or a embedded cellular modem, which is the Z3C here. They have a one WAN port and a 4-port switch in those guys. One of those ports gives us PoE out, and all those ports support 802.1x for authentication onto the network in there. And then all the rest of them are the MX appliances that support 2 WAN ports, advanced firewalling capabilities, and the likes in there. Now, there is no feature functionality difference on the whole range because it runs the same firmware across the whole product line, which is a really unique thing. It's like, okay, I want a box today to go into a site, and I'm only got 50 meg links. I might put in the MX64 or MX67 or 68, and down the track I then go and upgrade that link to 1 gigabit per second. I can just go into the Meraki dashboard, delete that device from that network, add another device of the right throughput, MX100 or 250, and then boot that appliance up. It gets the same config, has the same place in the network, and has all the configuring capability that we did. There is no other feature functionality apart from the throughput and a number of ports on the front for those guys. So really, really simple to not have to worry about, hey, I can only use this box has this feature and that box has that feature. We make that nice and simple. Then we also have the virtual versions of the MX as well. So the middle range speeds and feeds is for going into AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and Alibaba Cloud. Today, we've just launched new ones of these. So we only used to have a thing called a VMX 100, which was one size fits all, which was equivalent to the VMX medium. And now we have small, medium, and large. So for 50 tunnel throughputs, 500s, and 1,000 plus tunnels, basically, for going up into those clouds. The Azure cloud only supports the small and the medium, the Azure and Google Cloud. We're working with those vendors to support a larger compute footprint to support the large, but at the moment that's where we are, which is great anyway. So in there, but having those that sort of flexibility in there. So Meraki is probably is the leading SD-WAN in the industry, or Cisco is inside our portfolio in there by far with our deployed numbers and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go on about what they all are, but they're pretty impressive inside there. Excuse me for the drink. The MX also is not just an SD-WAN appliance; it does the UTM functionalities as well. So therefore, we can have a single appliance that goes into a site that we can provide all our security, posture, policy, and control on, as well as doing SD-WAN, which is what we call auto VPN in a Meraki world inside there. Excuse me. In there, in the back end of the MX, we monitor all the features and all the throughputs and MOS scores and latency and jitter. All the data's there to allow us to do intelligent traffic steering. I'll show some of this in real time rather than graphs, but we drive, we send traffic, we do performance metrics, all based on data-driven, driven data out of the dashboard. Know what's going on, using probes over those paths or over the internet inside there, and we're enhancing that over time too, as we've seen that massive, bigger transition to SaaS. It's like, why send this over my back to my data center and out those head-end sites? Why not send it straight to the internet? What are we doing around that? I'll talk about that in a minute. Extension of public clouds. We talked about the VMXs inside there, where we can have these off in, as I said, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and Alibaba today to extend it up to there. So the use case around this is, hey, I've got data center, I've got some servers inside there. I've transitioned some of the stuff to SaaS, so therefore I no longer have servers for that. But then I have some applications that I simply can't get as SaaS, or their buying life cycle is they're not ready to be SaaS yet, or they're homegrown and home written, so therefore I have no need to. But I don't want to keep my physical data centers. I don't want to keep leasing rack space. So I'll go and run them up in AWS or Azure or Google Cloud or something like that. But then how do I secure that application? Because it's never really designed to be an internet, application. And that's where we would just put one of the MXs or VMXs into those clouds and just extend our SD-WAN up to there. Or we have some customers that have no data centers. They just have a couple of VMXs in various clouds, and that is the head end for their SD-WAN for that traffic in there. All they send over those tunnels is the traffic destined to those destinations, or the traffic to those locations, and that's it. Everything else would then go straight out to the internet. Inside the paths for SD-WAN, I talked before a little bit about, you know, the transition of MPLS to broadband-based services, or whatever service you really like. We don't really care. In there, it can be connected in. What we typically see as customers transition to SD-WAN is they don't just go, I'm going to turn everything on, do full internet steering with all this fancy, you know, capabilities overnight. What they typically would do is, first of all, take their traditional services, put an MX or SD-WAN appliance in there, and just tunnel over those networks. What we call that obscuring the underlay inside there. So that means if I'm doing like route peering or anything into those networks, I really don't need to do that, because I'm no longer, you know, sharing that route table inside there, because I'm just going straight over top. I'm just using it as a carriage point. And that means that then I can add my second link, my WAN link here, to inside here, which might be over a broadband service or 4G, and it will just build a tunnel. Now I've built two tunnels over those two different underlays, and I've provided availability or redundancy straight away. If one was to fail, all the traffic fails to the other in there. If I then wanted to upgrade, you know, my point-to-point links, my MPLS services, to something else, I would just provision that circuit at site, unplug it, plug it in, and the tunnel will be automatically created over top of that infrastructure as well, to make it, you know, super easy for WAN upgrades or changes or carrier changes if they need to be plugged. Then from there, once we've created that SD-WAN overlay, we then move into doing policy-based routing over these networks. We'll say, hey, I've got business critical apps, and I have, you know, just non-critical apps or standard apps, or then I also have just that background traffic, you know, the people listening to Spotify at work, the people doing YouTube or whatever. It sometimes might be a learning system or something, but how do I manage all that? So therefore, what we can do is go and add SLAs to that traffic. Here's my business grade applications. I want them to go over this circuit, as long as it's inside these performance metrics. And if it's not, then move it to the right circuit that has the right performance metrics in there. And that's what we start to see. And it's like, you know, crawl, walk, run. So walking is we're starting to understand, because we've never really known what's going over our WAN. We have traffic going over there, and when the link runs out of, speed, we then go and, you know, increase the link speed, or we modify our QoS policy, or we do something, you know, to change that performance. So now we can go and start to see this in real time on what's going on. We can see all the applications that people are using. We can see the bandwidth hogs. We can see that, you know, someone doing, you know, iOS updates on their iPhone at work is consuming all the bandwidth at the site. So what we can do then is go and provide a policy, apply a policy for that rate limits that right down to still kind of work, or to block it, or to say, hey, you can use all the bandwidth as long as my business critical applications aren't using that. And that's where it sort of goes second. And then third is dynamic path selection, where we start to really, understand how my, network's working. I now know what my business critical apps are. I'm treating them with some priority. I know what my non-business critical ones are, and I've got those ones in the middle, and I want to make sure that they get the best SLA, or they don't fail over, or they're going directly to the internet, because that's the best path from, and that's dynamic path selection. So typically see customers, do multiple stages of deploying this. It's not something that's static. And then what we typically would see is like, constant reviews, because it's really easy to measure now. I can look in the dashboard and see everything that's going on, and modifying things like my QoS policies as my traffic changes based on how users are using it. Especially if you've gone from 2 meg circuits to, 100 meg symmetrical, or 140 meg circuits, or whatever, the user traffic and patterns change a lot in there. Now for connecting the 4G and cellular, you might have sort of said, that's great, I'm going to have this little box that has a cellular modem built into it. It's going to go into the little cabinet at the back of the room, inside the brick room, inside the metal cabinet, where 4G doesn't work really well. So I can run coax out of that to the roof, and have all that loss of that coax cable running to the roof, and put an antenna externally, and that'll cost me X $1,000, or $1,000 or something like that. I put one in my house. It was about $300 worth of coax to go about 3 meters of good quality coax. Then your antenna, $100 and something plus labor. My labor was free because I did it, but that's kind of where we're at. So what we've done with the MG is we've gone, this is pretty cool. we really want to have this cellular modem or antenna externally. So we just built these two little fellows here, the MG21 and 21E, which are a cellular modem designed to be outdoor, so IP67 rated, and to be PoE powered and only require Cat5 or twisted pair cable running to those in there. So now I can start to take that LTE modem, or that 4G modem, not have it inside my comms cupboard. I can put it external my building. I'll put it near the front of the building, or one customer of mine puts them above their ceiling tiles in their shop, above near the front of the shop, because that's where it's got the best 4G coverage, rather than under the counter in the back of the shop. Or you can sort of understand where else they could go. So we can now run that out there, power it by PoE, and have it connected to one or two MXs. They have two ports on them for connecting inside there. That's our approach to that. So that then allows us to connect to the SD-WAN appliances to make it easy. So a typical site would be an MX branch site that's got my existing carriage, and then I go and put my MG somewhere else in that building, or it might even be good coverage in that site. And then I just plug that straight into that guy there, the MX, and now I've got SD-WAN on redundant paths. Or if I'm doing HA, it might be like this, where I might have my existing connection coming into one device, mightn't even have it on the second device, and I might have the MG cellular then connected to both of those to provide them that HA function. So if WAN link 1 fails, I fail to WAN link 2. If box 1 fails, I fail to WAN link 2 on box 2. Or I can duplicate that primary link and get it connected to both inside there. Or if you really want multiple 4G connections with different carriers, and this is another approach here inside there. Or if I'm just going to have it as my primary, I want to get good coverage, one device outside, two devices in HA just running on 4G, for example, or the sort of cross connect path here. But gives us that flexibility connected however we want to provide that availability for 4G. Now, I talked a little bit earlier, and I've covered in every session around our licensing model. It's super simple. It's one device, one license, and that license is 1, 3, 5, 7, or 10 years. And that gives you the full dashboard, all the firmware updates, security patches, 24/7 phone support, 8x5 next business day advanced replacement warranty on the hardware, and all the features and functionality in that licensing tier. So there's nothing else to pay. If you've got 100 sites and 100 licenses, 100 MXs and 100 licenses for 5 years, that's your total cost of ownership for Meraki for 5 years. There's nothing else to pay. That includes in functionality like our advanced security, which includes other capabilities. I'll talk about that in a second. I'll wind one back. So the licensing tiers on the MX, for the longest of time, we've had two licensing tiers, which is Enterprise, which gives us all our SD-WAN functionalities, gives us all our routing functionalities, gives us the stateful firewall capability on the box. So if we're just doing SD-WAN and we're just going to do it over our existing carriage, and we're not even interested about using the internet, or we might want to plug it in but only use it to full tunnel traffic and not send traffic to the internet and provide security, posture, policy, and control at the edge, Enterprise license is where we'll go. This isn't all about selling to the highest tier, it's about right-sizing the licensing for the customer. If you then want to have that internet traffic going directly to the internet and you want to provide security, posture, policy, and control, then we had advanced security. So advanced security license includes advanced malware protection on the box, IPS, IDS, content filtering, geo firewall rules on that appliance. And that's all included in the subscription. So like I said before, 100 sites, 100 licenses. I never have to worry about a subscription over that 5 years. It's all covered for 5 years in there. All my updates are done. Everything's automagic for that inside there. So that then adds that full threat management, visibility inside the dashboard. Also gives us umbrella integration in there as well if we wanted to enhance it further with Cisco Umbrella in there, but it gives that full UTM in there. Where we've just added a third license inside here, license here, is the SD-WAN Plus. Now this is all about readying for SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, the next hype coming into the industry around the extensions of SD-WAN and cloud scaling security. It's also about managing SaaS to the internet better as well, where we'll start to say, hey, inside Secure SD-WAN Plus, I want to send this traffic to the best path to the SaaS provider, to Office 365, to WebEx Teams or whatever. Which path is the best one? Is it over my SD-WAN tunnel to my data center and out? Is it straight out internet interface straight to the customer, or is it via the umbrella cloud, via the internet tunnel up to there? Like, let me choose so I know what metrics inside there. So what Secure SD-WAN Plus gives us is advanced analytics with machine learning, which is a capability called Meraki Insight, which I'll cover in a second, that understands how applications are running from an end user's point of view. Smart SaaS optimization, what's the best way to get SaaS out there and accelerate that to the cloud? And we've got a lot more coming in that space, which I won't cover today. Segmentation, so there is a commitment that we'll be doing end-to-end scalable group tags. So in my first session, I talked about switching. I talked about scalable group tags or security group tags or TrustSec, as the Cisco model calls it as well. That segmentation will cover end-to-end over our environment. If you have got segmentation concerns today, we can meet those in other licenses using the inbuilt firewall capabilities on there, where I'm doing VLAN to VLAN firewalling, or over my auto VPN, my SD-WAN firewalling. So there's a lot of capability to meet that already on the platform, but this just gives us that whole organizational wide end-to-end segmentation using SGTs or scalable group tags in there. So that's the three tiers in there. So really, what we're going to is, from having SD-WAN, where we did dynamic path selection, voice routing based on voice metrics, a thing called MOS, mean opinion score, policy-based based on how I want that to steer my traffic. Hey, all my voice traffic has to go over WAN 1, unless there's a problem, then go over WAN 2, policy-based, or manual path selection. Only send, this traffic over WAN 2 and don't send it the other way, or only send it to the internet and don't back it up. That's where we're going from. So having a lot more intelligence inside there, which is a Secure SD-WAN Plus, using machine learning capabilities to understand the whole the overlay and the traffic going over there and how that's performing. And so that we start to get smart thresholds, which we've released some of that functionality, WAN and voice assurance, and then the same other use cases before with dynamic path selection, policy-based path selection, obviously manual if you want to do that. So that's where we're moving from and moving to inside there. A little bit on SD-WAN Plus. I'll just dig one little layer deeper. I won't go too deep, but the advanced analytics with machine learning, what I've talked about inside that is supreme visibility, to understand exactly what the applications are doing from an end user's point of view, which is what we do today with a thing called Meraki Insight, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the SD-WAN Plus licensed here includes Meraki Insight, Enterprise, and Advanced Security. It's an add-on for Meraki Insight inside there. Where we'll be taking that is inside Meraki Insight, where we know how the end user is experiencing the network, is then move to that to be smart thresholds over there and do application steering based on that smart thresholds in there. So I don't have to go and set when I reach 20% packet loss, or chance is probably pretty high, 10% packet loss, then I have a problem. It's like, no, I just steer the traffic around that. Where we're going to, and this is what's on the truck today, are those two. Where we're going to is that predictive foresight. How do I, understand how my network's behaving, so that on Tuesday when something happens, it always happens on Tuesday this time, I can already be ready to steer that traffic around that problem. Or I understand, that Monday morning logons is always the highest load. I'm already ready for that inside the network and have calculated the best path. That's where we're going to. Smart SaaS optimization sort of fits inside that, but it's how we steer that under there, where we just control path, send it over our SD-WAN, or send it straight to the internet to just take the best path. We don't really care how you get to the other end, as long as it meets, from a security point of view, what I want to do. Just get that traffic there and meet that SLA and send it whichever way you want. To smart path, which goes akin to what I was saying before, how we do smart rerouting of traffic, that predictive failure type power that we're going to get out of more machine learning inside there. And that's the vision again. And I talk about segmentation, is that the appliances today have a lot of capability around security filtering or firewall rules. We add source-based routing to devices as well. We can say, hey, the traffic is voice, it's coming from this VLAN, send straight out that path, to tag-based for segmentation, which is going to be around that scalable group tags, or SGTs, or security group tags, whatever they're called this week. So Meraki Insight here as well is machine, understanding end user experience monitoring. So the MX creates a bunch of data that we push off into our data lakes. We mine that data and then provide application performance metrics from that. Because the MX is a full stateful firewall, it's got to pull all the packets apart anyway. So we're just taking that artifact to data. So there's no performance hit turning this on the MX. It's already being done. It's then just representing that in a human readable format in there. So Meraki Insight gives us that end-to-end network SaaS performance manager. So a good example of this is early on when we were first building this capability, I beated it with one of our customers running Office 365. They had a certain site with a certain group of users that said that it's just rubbish, it doesn't work, that kind of stuff. It's the same group of users that always complains about every IT change. So the IT group went, well, they're just a bunch of whingers, bad luck. That's the way Office 365 works, don't care. We chucked this on their network, which they're running Meraki MXs and SD-WAN, and they were quickly able to see that, there was performance issues at that site, and there was actually issues with certain users at that site who are load balanced to certain back-end servers. So they're able to go from going, well, when it was on-prem, we could go over and talk to the server guys, and they go, oh yeah, that server in the cluster's having issues. I'll just fail the cluster over and everyone stops complaining too. Well, I don't know who I'd go and report this problem to now, so just put up with it. They're able to see intelligently, hey, these servers inside the back end of this SaaS application, in this case 365, are performing poorly. They're able to log a meaningful job. Obviously that was then remediated by taking those servers out of their pool of servers for load balancing, or probably everyone's, and going remediating that. And then those users were much happier. They weren't always going to be happy because they were always the ones that complained anyway. But they were able to see that. Otherwise, from a SaaS application point of view, they would never been able to see what's happening inside their network. So, like I said, easy to see, easy to add, nothing to deploy if you've got a Meraki MX on site. Another customer of mine actually doesn't have Meraki MXs in their organisation. They've got wireless and switching, and they wanted to get the similar sort of data. So what we can do is put an MX in transparent mode, which is just bumping the wire in between like the switch on their network and their router, and we're able to get all the analytics for them. For another, actually a voice issue in this case was where we're able to go and get those information straight away to see, one, what's all the data running over that network link, because it's harder to extract out that router with NetFlow off to another VM running a NetFlow, analytics platform, and go and see what's going on. They can just put the MX in there in the dashboard straight away. They've got that visibility, can see applications, do voice health data, and know what's going on inside there. So that's just a bump in the wire, transparent mode the MX can go in as well. We've added voice health monitoring to Meraki Insight. One thing about all Meraki products, as we talked about in the first session, is that features keep getting added, more functionality gets in there, data gets richer, and it gets better over time. So in Meraki Insight, initially it was just that web application performance monitoring. We've added voice health monitoring, which allows us to do synthetic checks off to voice servers, regardless of vendor, we don't really care, to go and see how those paths are going and what's happening inside there, so I can at least have a feel for my network and what's going on there. We've also added a thing called WAN health monitoring as well, which is about looking at every single WAN link on every single MX and looking for trends and analysis across those. Hey, all these WAN links connect to this ISP or this service provider, and they're all having an issue at the same time, and they're all in North Queensland. Bang, I've got a problem. I can tell straight away inside there. I'll show voice health in real time in a second. So the MX is more than just SD-WAN, as I talked about with that advanced security licenses. It's all backed by the Cisco Telos Cloud with all the functionality inside there. Remember, advanced malware protection is built into the box with advanced security or above, includes the SD-WAN Plus licensing tier. There is threat grid integration. If you have a threat grid subscription, that can just be, that's just sandboxing in the cloud, allows the MX to go and sandbox those files up inside there. The Snort engine in there for IPS and IDS, the content filtering capabilities in there. There's a lot of integration to a Cisco ICE across all the Meraki products because it's all Cisco at the end of the day. And then we have native integration to Umbrella as well. So integration to Umbrella is two ways. One, just DNS forward, easy to get around, that kind of stuff. And then there's also native Umbrella integration, which from our side is copy and pasting a key from Umbrella dashboard and the Meraki dashboard. Then all my Umbrella policies appear in the Meraki dashboard, and I can just selectively send users or groups of users or VLANs or whatever to Umbrella for that level of protection in there. From a single dashboard view, Umbrella gets the richness in their dashboard of all the internal IP addressing that the MX would know about. So really powerful and simple to integrate in there. Telos, this is probably old stats, I probably should have updated these, is the biggest threat intelligence cloud globally, sees so much data, it's ridiculous in there. So I won't sort of go on how much of that kind of stuff. Oops, I won't go on the next steps. Let's jump in and have a look at Meraki SD-WAN first. So this is the Meraki dashboard. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty simple in there. Here's a view which is of my lab, which is behind the curtain behind me. Of a bunch of sites in there. This is the intelligence I get. You can see when I switched this on this morning, going, oh, gee, I should have turned that on yesterday to make it green all day. But what we can see inside that, I can also go into here from a point of view and look at each link and what performance those links are doing, and I can drill into those those links as well. So I can go in and say, hey, that's this site here. I want to look at my link off to branch 2, and I can go in and have a look at the traffic on that path and analytics inside there. In there, and then we can see the latency, jitter, loss, and our MOS score for that path and what's happened in there. If I've got multiple paths, which I'll just jump to another appliance on here, then I can see multiple paths and how they're behaving inside there. So this is the device that's got multiple links. We can see the same stats for different paths in there and how my hubs are performing. Now, from a Meraki Insight point of view, the data I'll see inside there for things like web app health will be all the applications that I want to be able to go and see what's going on, which is selective. I can add ones in here. There's not too much traffic running over my network, but from a WAN health point of view, I can go and see all the WAN sites at that and what's going on, how they're behaving, what their cellular signal strength is, if there's loss or anything on those links. If there was application performance issues on here, I'd see effective apps inside there, and I'll try and show that on the Meraki corporate thing environment as well. And then voice health here too, where I'm doing synthetic application monitoring off to WebEx Cloud Calling in this case, but it could be to any provider, where I can jump in and have a look at these. And here, this guy here, we've seen an issue where we've seen loss on that link, which went up to above 10%, which resulted in a drop in MOS score in there. But I can see all those stats inside there. Like what I've also able to do is go and look at different times, including a custom range in there as well, where I can go and say, hey, look, the person reported a problem last, Wednesday, for example, at between 10 and 10:15, and I can go straight into that time. Or I can go and do a live check now of that whole path to try and see how that path is performing inside there. So this is all the machine learning and the smarts in the back end that we'll be using for that application steering as part of that SD-WAN Plus functionality as well. So that'll come up, takes a little while to poll the whole path, and then I can go and see a hop-by-hop analysis of that path and every hop it took through the network to for that voice call to transition across there. And any loss or jitter or delay across that whole path is then reported, so I can start to drill into where the problem is, somewhere around here, which is somewhere back in the Cisco cloud based on the IP addressing range. Won't be our problem in there. Now, configuring SD-WAN, if I just jump into this little network, which is why I brought this one up, I'll just quickly show. This is the lab network that I have here. So what I have is I have emulating an MPLS cloud here. I have internet out here through a firewall. So I'm emulating like if I'm a customer, not with internet at every site inside there, apart from one, which is my LTE site, which has an internet path. And then I'm building this SD-WAN overlay. So all these tunnels are going to be built. At my head end site here, I have a couple of ISR routers emulating a data center, and I have a server over here. And I'm doing BGP route distribution inside here. Now, to build this up, I'll quickly go and show how long this would take inside there. So first of all, I have a hub. At a hub, I'm going to go and configure my addressing and VLANing for that site. I'm going to go to site-to-site VPN. And from there, I'm going to make this site a hub. So typically, out of the box, it comes like this. I'll make that site a hub. Bang, that's a hub. That means that every spoke will connect to this hub in there. I could have every site as a hub if I wanted to do full mesh across the whole lot. You know, not recommended, can be done, but have fun troubleshooting your traffic paths. We'll try and do the best we can, but there. Down here is where I go and configure BGP for this site, which is then just appeared as my internal AS number, so my iBGP, and then this is the IP address of the, in this case, the ISR router, the Cisco router, what its eBGP peer is, and then the other metrics to make sure that it all comes up. So that's all I need to do that. So now I've configured, you know, the hub site with full BGP routing. Then if I wanted to go, and I've done that twice at 2 hubs, if I want to go and then configure a branch site, I'll pick my site that has 2 links on it. It's the same with it. I just go to site VPN again, and then I go and select the hubs. Out of the box, this would have no hubs selected. I can't delete all of them, but I'd go and add the hubs to that site, and then that would then select those or drop those down and select whatever I wanted to do. In this case, I've only got 2 hubs in there. If I wanted to do full tunnel routing, so say that, you know, earlier I talked about crawl, walk, run. Crawling is let's just go and tunnel everything over my current links and then work out how to do stuff later on. I can just go and tick these boxes. That'll put a default route in there, which means that every bit of traffic will just go over that SD-WAN tunnel. If I don't want to send it over there, even with full tunnel, like I had a guest network here, you know, VLAN 200 is local only, I would just say don't include that inside the VPN. So this is what I'm going to include in the VPN and not in the VPN, you know, basically like a route map from a Cisco point of view, where I'd say, hey, put that inside or don't. And anything that's not in the VPN here would just go straight out the interface, unencapsulated. So again, that's it. That's now configured that site to have 2 hubs with default routing in there. If I wanted to then traffic shape and send traffic over there, I won't save that because I have a tendency of saving stuff and then breaking things. Then I would go to this SD-WAN and traffic shaping page here, which is where all the powers and all the manipulation side is. The first thing on this page is my link shapers. What speed are these links so that my quals rules work, or that I'm not oversubscribing the link. So here I've set both my links to 10 meg, but that could be any speed I wanted, or if I wanted to do asymmetric routing, I can just click on details and type in, you know, 140, for example, if I was going to do some sort of NBN 140 link, easy to do. Further down here, I have the uplink selection page where I say, hey, which link do I want to send all the traffic out by default? And I can select that, or I can say, let's go and load balance it across those 2 paths, which will be load balanced based on those speeds I put up before in that sort of ratio. A bit intelligence behind that as well. If I want to conserve on my VPN tunnels, i.e. only build tunnels over WAN link 1, then I would disable active auto VPN, which means I'm not going to build SD-WAN tunnels over WAN link 2 until WAN link 1 fails. It's a lot of controls inside here, and like you can see, if you know CLI, imagine trying to do this via command line, it'd take a bit of time. And then here's where all the powers, and this is the SD-WAN policies. So here I have a policy that says all voice and video conferencing, which I've just selected from a simple list inside here, or I could do from custom expressions. You know, just go and use the best path of voice. We always monitor the SD-WAN for voice performance, and that's a standard inbuilt custom performance monitor. If I wanted to add other performance monitor, I can add that. So this is going to say, hey, all voice and video conferencing, go over the best path of voice. I can say, hey, only go over WAN link 1 and only fail to WAN link 2 based on poor performance of that VoIP monitor, or only fail over to WAN link 2 based on uplink down. And that's as easy as writing an SD-WAN policy is. Here's some custom performance classes that I've added in. These are just your own metrics where I've said, hey, here, you know, send YouTube over WAN link 1 unless it's got poor performance of traffic type A in there. You know, nice and simple in there. That. What we've also added for this, you know, before we did full tunnel routing for this site, and now we just want to peel out some traffic for there. I wanted to send certain traffic off to a certain site. So I can do a VPN exclusion rules. Now I'll just sort of show the difference in here. So all the licenses get this custom expression tab, and the SD-WAN Plus license gets the major applications tab. So the custom expressions tab allows us to do things like DNS. I only want to send anything off to www.cisco.com out that interface without sending it over the SD-WAN. And that's as easy as that is, or IP addresses and that kind of stuff, or whatever. Now, what SD-WAN Plus gives us is a lot of smart application visibility. So what we can do inside that, or what we do inside that, is we go off and we poll, the manufacturers of this SaaS applications or developers of it. We poll their sites for their list of what they classify their application as, because they constantly change. So here now, I can go and say, hey, I'm using voice. I'm going to send all Skype and Teams outside that tunnel, and we'll automatically classify that and do that, or all WebEx traffic in there, and we'll keep that up to date for the customer. There's no need to manually keep that up to date. This is our list of applications today. This grows and will grow on customer demand. The bottom of every page inside Meraki for that customer demand point is down here, where we have this little make a wish button where we can go and make a wish as to what we'd like to see inside there. Now, other quality of service over here, I'll just quickly show that. So here is a global bandwidth limit. So we can go and rate limit per client. So that, say we had a 10 meg link at the site, we want no client to use more than 5 meg, we can just go and do that. Or we might leave everyone flat out inside there, and we might go and write a clause policy that says, let's go and say all file sharing applications, and let's do online backups and social media and file sharing, is we think that people could use those at work, but we're going to rate limit them back to 1 megabit per second, and we're going to put them in our low priority queue. We're also going to mark their quaz as best effort in there. So straight away, I've then allowed all those to work, but I'm not going to waste my bandwidth on those. And I can do the same in reverse for important business applications. I might have an internal, business application called, server1 .here.com, or it might be an IP address. I might go and add him to that, and I might say, look, just ignore the per client bandwidth limit that I did before. Stick that traffic in the high priority queue and mark that as low latency, low drop data AF21, and that's as easy as it is there. So that's doing a clause policy inside there. That's how easy it is, and that's sort of SD-WAN and that richness in the dashboard for that. There's not much more. The advanced security and threat protection capabilities in there we try and make that as simple as possible as well. This is how you turn AMP off, and that's how you turn AMP on. And then we can either whitelist. So we try and make that as simple. If you want super complex, that's why people sell complex firewalls like FTDs in there. At a branch site, you sort of question how much of that you would need. IPS and IDS is the same. You see that disabled detection or prevention. And then we have 3 lots of rule sets, security, balanced, and connectivity, which is basically a vulnerability score, a CVSS of 8, 9, or 10 in there. We can also whitelist as well. Now, here's the umbrella button for in there. Content filtering for the site is here as well. We can just go and block content filtering as much as we like inside there for the site. We can give people different splash pages for that inside there. Block certain URL patterns in there. Now, you might say, hey, that's cool, I want to go and block all that stuff for that site, but for the IT people at site, I want to remove that block, and that's where we'll use a capability called group policies, which I've covered in a few sessions across here, where we can pivot configuration based on group policy. I might go and add a group policy called smart people, and inside there, I'm going to go and modify my custom firewall rules and shaping policies. I'm going to add a new shaping rule for those guys and say, hey, even on the other network, I played down software antivirus updates and made it slower. For an IP person logged on, I'm actually going to allow them to, go much higher, and I'm going to give them a higher priority on that network and change their quaz. And that can be additive to the existing rules, and the same with content filtering. in there, is that, hey, here's my block website categories. I'm going to add extras or override for that person, then give them different categories, or say I was a group of users I wanted to add more to, I can append and give them different categories. So a way to pivot config and be quite powerful in there. Now, what I was going to show is a little bit of Meraki Insight, in a larger way, looking at more customers, and that was pretty much I was going to show in there, just on a real dashboard. So this dashboard here is the Meraki corporate network. Here's our VPN status for starters in there. And then from a Meraki Insight point of view, web app health inside here. Now, let's hope there's problems in Sydney. I don't need to configure smart app. So here you can see Gmail, for example, is got issues in the network, but straight away from a Meraki Insight point of view, it's not an issue on our LAN. Actually, the server, the Gmail server itself is okay. There's some WAN issue at a site. It's only at Meraki San Francisco. Let me jump into the application to see what's going on. So here I can see, there is an issue. I can see a performance score we automatically put here, and here where we're falling below that inside there, what's going on, latency and jitter. What servers is making it up and who's got the worst problems. We have this nice little performance score here. The lower the number, the worse. So it's really only this server that's got that issue. And what clients are being affected. Here's the clients being affected by that, and then you can jump over and show that client only and things like that inside there. So pretty easy, pretty highly visible, and you can see what's going on inside that network pretty quickly. And hopefully if I show WAN health, it should in there, and that real network then show applications having issues at certain sites. You've got to kind of catch them. No, there you go. Gmail is affected at these sites in there. So really easy to see what's going inside in there. Hopefully that was a good summary and oversight of everything that I've covered in there. If there's any questions, like I said, there's a Q&A panel here in there. The next steps from our point of view is, we can try it, do a Meraki trial, get a couple of devices. It's good to do MXs if you're going to trial it, have a chat to us and get 3, so we can emulate a data center and 2 sites, or HA at 1 site and a data center, or the likes as a bare minimum to test that in there. Keeping up to speed, Meraki communities, there's a lot of wealth of information on there. We all go on there and answer customer questions. It's where we want to have that ease of interaction with Meraki and Meraki support in there. And obviously, Data3 is the partner that you can contact to, take any of these next steps inside there. I think what we called out to is at the end of this event, if you're interested, there is a survey you can complete and request more information inside there as well. I'll hand back to Simon if there's any questions inside that session. I think I went pretty slow and covered a lot of stuff in depth.
That was really good, Scott. Thank you. Look, I might just point out, obviously, data circuits and internet circuits were prominent in that presentation. And I'd just like to say that Data3, through one of our business units, is registered with the Telecommunications Ombudsman for the supply of internet and data carriage. And they've been doing that for the last 18 years. We supply secure 4G and 5G connections. And we also do MPLS and Layer 2 via NBN, Vocus, AAPT, Optus and Telstra. And also there's, of course, the WebEx calling facility where we utilize my NetPhone. So if you're looking for the SD-WAN solution with all the telco components really to support that, Data3 can do that as a one-stop shop for you. I think a key question that came up in my mind, Scott, was, look, I need BGP to connect to MPLS. What's Meraki's position on that? Can you actually do that?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about that when we connected in this. The whole idea of SD-WAN is really to obscure that underlay and make that simple path over there. So we basically build tunnels over it. So once we're transitioning from MPLS to SD-WAN, the easiest way is to not do that peering. So we don't support that on the boxes, because then we can just plug into the MPLS, you get the IP address of that edge, or you manually configure that, and we just build a tunnel over there. And the main place you want to redistribute BGP is back into your data centers. So the other question that comes up a lot, because a lot of certain voice product around in the Brisbane market that is inside that MPLS, is like, well, how do you do that? Well, the best way to do that is what a lot of customers do, and there's quite a few agencies already doing this, where they hairpin those voice circuits or voice capability back via their a couple of sites. So therefore, then all exists in the SD-WAN overlay. We saw before that on the SD-WAN overlay, we monitor that for voice quality all the time, whereas if it's in the underlay, we don't. It's just sent out that interface, and then you won't have redundancy. So by putting, by not BGP peering, putting all that traffic over the SD-WAN overlay and hairpinning certain MPLS type of traffic back through your data centers, and that would only be those services, which probably would move to something like WebEx calling down the track anyway, gives you redundancy for that voice traffic or any traffic that's on there, gives you visibility straight away. There's much more powerful there. So happy to chat through that. I know that people have some objections about that because they go, oh no, I've got to have it. It's like, let's chat about that one in detail if we need to, and explain to you, what we're trying to achieve, what's our outcome, and why we don't really need to do that.
Okay.
Long answer. Sorry.
That's all good. I did notice back on the 9th of November in the Australian that the federal government's just announced an exposure draft of security legislation amendment that will give national security agencies the ability to step into corporates and government departments to actively disrupt and repel cyber attackers. So very interesting things afoot there. You mentioned AMP and Snort and Umbrella as being, certainly AMP and Snort and the licenses for SD-WAN out of the box with SD-WAN Plus. But you've got Umbrella that you can add Duo, SecureX, StealthWatch, ThreatGrid. Obviously Cisco's got an extremely comprehensive suite of security componentry that just has straight integration into the Meraki suite. Have you got any comment on that, perhaps, just as we wind up?
No, yeah, well, 100%. It's the extension to all that. It's the power of that Telos cloud inside there. Turning it on is simple, and that's the way the branches should be. We shouldn't need to have complex firewall rules at every site that's hard to manage and maintain. It should be a simple policy-based approach, which I didn't talk about in there, but there is a way to template all the config I did there. If you want to do 100 sites, we can template that, including the security configuration in there, with central logging back to your seams and the likes like that to make it nice and simple. But, security becomes a radio button. Again, security is a good conversation point on what you're trying to achieve around, zero trust, and all those, capabilities. Make sure we have the right components in there to be compliant. But, a lot of organisations, especially in retail, that need to meet things like PCI compliance and that kind of stuff. Their easy button to PCI compliance was implement Meraki SD-WAN, because it was able to, do that straight out of the box, allow them to be compliant pretty quickly.
Okay. Well, look, I see we've just gone on the hour. So, look, just wanted to thank everyone for their attendance today. We really value your involvement, and please take the 2 minutes to answer the simple questionnaire at the end. We really value your feedback. Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to any questions and assistance going forward. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.